Senator Kevin Cramer of the great state of North Dakota. Kevin Cramer, the holdup here is, I think, about this FERC transmission utility power, where they can just order these utilities. I mean, FERC has a monopoly, the utility commissions have monopolies, to go on ahead and build new transmission lines, put them for renewable fuels, and everybody in the neighborhood has to pay for it whether they want to or not. And right. You object to that, and you want to take it out. Do I have this about right? It's a very complicated matter.
It's very complicated, Larry. You're exactly right. You know, before I went to Congress, I spent 10 years as an energy regulator citing pipelines and transmission lines and wind farms and all kinds of things, and setting rates. And all of this is important. Now, you know, I'm a big fan of cooperative federalism. I think our founders had it right. But what this FERC piece does is it takes away federalism, gives all the power to the federal government, and that means inciting and everything. Now, I'm going to give a little benefit of the doubt here, because I do believe, and I always have, that a federal backstop is appropriate to some degree. But that's why in the infrastructure bill, we provided a federal backstop, a sort of a broad jurisdiction for FERC, where they could set up these big corridors within which states can site transmission lines. That makes perfect sense in a federalist system. They destroy all that, give all the power to the federal government, and then worse than that, Larry, they just spread the bill around to everybody. Socializing costs of monopoly infrastructure is, you know, that's a legitimate regulatory power, but that's a power for state regulatory agencies, not for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
So why doesn't, I mean, I think I may know the answer, but why doesn't Schumer and Manchin take it out? Because that's going to be a key reason why this cloture vote will fail tonight. Why don't they just take it out? Or, Senator Cramer, maybe they want it in because this is more Green New Deal, top-down regulatory central planning, and that's what they want to dictate: utility bills, renewable lines, and everybody has to pay for them. So, what? Take it out or central planning? Which is it?
So you gave me a 50-50 shot of getting it right, and I think you know the answer. That's exactly right. Remember, even again in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the compromise was that, you know, these corridors. That wasn't what they wanted. They want to have all the authority so they can build whatever infrastructure they want that helps their cause, and their cause being to do away with 24 hours, 7 day a week, you know, coal energy, even frankly, you know, some nuclear. They want to be able to do what they want to do, give all the power to the federal government to do it. And so this is reform. When Mitch McConnell says this is reform in name only, he's only partially right. This is reform that is wrong. This is reform the wrong direction. Unless, of course, you own a pipeline in West Virginia, then it's a swell idea. Oh. But I have pipelines in North Dakota that I'd like to have finished. And no one's offering me that deal for my vote.
Well, that was, wait a second, is that the Dakota Access Pipeline?
It is.
That's the one that the Interior Secretary, when she was a House member, went up to picket? I remember that whole story. Yep. All right, let's not go there. You have an amendment, though, that I think is very good, establishing a shot clock for the infrastructure permits. If a project is not approved within the 1 year and 2 year time frame, the project is deemed approved. I love that. And that basically was the Trump NEPA reform that we helped to hatch in the National Economic Council. You know, what, 3-4 years ago. So that's right. A shot clock, and then that's it. The clock runs out, the permit goes in, and we're off to the races.
Yep. So what Joe tries to do in his bill is he sets a 1 year, you know, environmental assessment timeline and a 2 year EIS, environmental impact study, which is shorter than they've been doing, but still far too long. The problem is at the end of the 1 year or the 2 years, there's no enforcement mechanism. There's no default. So I'm saying, Joe, if you're going to have 2 year EIS limit, then on 2 years and 1 day, if the federal government hasn't issued the permit, it automatically then defaults to the applicant. Otherwise, what's the incentive for them to hurry up? And frankly, even the judicial review process, it's never ending. And this administration's been doing just what the previous Biden administration, the Obama-Biden administration did, and that is they get into friendly lawsuits with their friends in friendly courtrooms, and they make these deals, and they become law, and then no one ever votes on them. The judge and the lawyers all go out for cocktails afterwards. I'm just making that part up. I don't know that for sure. But, you know, this sue and settle regime that they've set up is the way they get by going around all of this stuff. And so we need real reforms, Larry, but this doesn't do it.
You know, I'm just thinking this through. I've read a lot about it. I've talked to Francis Brooke, who's now in Steve Scalise's office, who was one of the authors of all this way back when. Look, Joe Manchin purports to want a mix of all the above, fossils and renewables, okay? Balance. That used to be American energy policy until this crazy Green New Deal stuff started with the Bidens.
Right.
But actually, going back to the transmission thing, Senator Cramer, the transmission thing is totally designed to help renewables and to make everybody pay for it, which we're already doing anyway, to the tune of $400 or $500 billion of tax credit. In other words, this transmission thing's not going to help fossils. It's all about renewables. Why would Manchin sign on to that? It's not in his own interest.
It's not, but I'm afraid Joe didn't burden himself with the details of these things. Remember, even as it's set up today, wind energy, for example, in the Midwest prevails over 24 hours, 7 day a week coal-fired energy on the grid as per the way that the regional transmission organizations are required to dispatch the electricity. So they already have a running head start in the marketplace, regardless of cost. It used to be low cost is what drove the market. And the more infrastructure that the federal government can put in and be responsible for and enforce, the more of the stuff that you can't rely on 24 hours a day is going to get on the line. And that's got all kinds of problems. That is wrought with all kinds. Just ask California, ask Texas, even ask the Northeast when they've had problems with intermittent, energy that is not always available, particularly when it's either really, really hot or really, really cold. And those are the bad times to not have a reliable grid and a reliable source of energy.
Last one, Senator, just 30 seconds. If the cloture vote goes down, it will be stripped from the CR, I reckon. Now, will there ever be another vote on permitting, or you have to wait till the cavalry comes January 3rd?
Yeah, really good point. I suspect they'd try to either attach it to something else or have a standalone vote of some sort, but they've got to do a lot better than this. For one thing, what they need to do is start working with Republicans. Otherwise, we wait for the cavalry, to your point.
Right. Senator Capito and Dan Sullivan, they both have very good ideas here. I don't know why they didn't incorporate that. Manchin should have thrown in with them. Maybe would have passed it. Who knows? Senator Kevin Cramer, as always, sir, thank you ever so much. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.